Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Awakening with the Girls.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Awakening with the Girls. I'm super excited as always, and today I have another beautiful guest here to have a just chill conversation and hopefully guide us in some things that inspire her. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what makes you you.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? I'm Pamela Schneider. I'm a energy worker and shamanic painter, and I also am a coach. Let's see, what inspires me? Right now, just really expressing myself creatively has been inspiring me, and the power that art has to heal and to facilitate your transformation. So
I love that. So you said you're a shamanic painter. I really want to dive into that as well as many of your other things that you do. But first, this podcast, for those that are listening, if you're just kind of tuning in, our goal is to just kind of share our experiences and things that may have been interesting or a rough journey for us at first going through the awakening or just kind of finding our true self. So I'm kind of curious, can you tell us a little bit about what it was like for you to realize you were on sort of a spiritual journey or a journey to find who you are?
well, it started out as I was going through prescription drug withdrawal and in a really unhealthy, physically violent relationship. And I decided to leave one day. I was going to health coaching training, and we got to the part where they say, no amount of healthy food or any of that stuff is going to help if you don't have love and a loving environment. And I realized that all of the healing work I had done really wasn't going to help so much if I continued to stay. And so I decided to leave one day, and I just didn't know where I was going. I didn't have any money. I took the car and the dog and some clothes, and I just decided to leave. And as I did that, an amazing number of synchronicities just lined up. Within that day, I had a place to stay, and within that week, I had a job. So
Beautiful.
yeah, and I had a number of really amazing, it was a really scary time for me because whenever you leave an unhealthy relationship, you go through this sort of withdrawal that's actually even worse than the drug withdrawal. So that was quite the trip, but I had some amazing things happen. I was trying to connect with angels, so I was listening to binaural beats and things like that. And one night I woke up in the middle of the night, and there was this presence in the room, and there was this vibration, and it was the same as if you look up binaural beats for angels, it was the same vibration. It was incredible. So synchronicities like that, being visited by angels and just seeing how supported I was in the physical and the spiritual realm just really helped me.
I think that's amazing. I love that you're willing to share that you communicate with angels, because one of the reasons I wanted to create this podcast is because I too communicate with angels and other energies. And that was a big thing about my personal journey that made me feel crazy. I wanted to share this magical experience and this healing experience for me, that it was to connect with this energy. And anytime I would try in what seemed like the normal world, I was shunned or kind of frowned upon for wanting to have this deeper connection with spirit. So it was really a big driver for me to find others in the community that believed that they too could have this connection, because it's such a beautiful connection. And I love that you found it through music. How has music played a part for you in this journey?
It's been huge. I grew up playing the flute.
Me too.
Yeah, and through exploring the gene keys. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Oh, not as much. Tell me more.
Well, the gene keys kind of found me. But it's a book that was like a transmission, a download, that there's a different key for each strand of your DNA. And we all have our own makeup, specific, makeup of those, but we also all have them all. And when you read it, it gives you not only just a personal perspective, but also like a worldview perspective on how the shadow and the light and the gift of that all plays out in your life and in the world. And so it's really helped me to come to a greater understanding of myself and the world. And in one of them, one of my main keys talks about how there's a shadow aspect that programs everyone, and it does so through sound. And I could see as I was reading the specific ways that it affected me, that it was happening in my life. And as I was reading about it, I could see how, like, even going back to when I was a child, how music was always such an escape for me. And so healing for me, just to like turn it on and be bathed in the sound, it would just shift everything, my mood, how I'm feeling, help me process my emotions. And this book explained why, because it's literally interrupting this shadow frequency that's trying to program me with its,
So you said the book was called Gene Keys or something like Gene Keys?
Gene Keys, yes.
Okay, beautiful. That kind of leads me into one of my questions I like to ask people is, what were some of the resources or books or people that really kind of triggered your deeper dive into who you are? So Gene Keys is a beautiful one. I'm going to find that and add a link in the description. But what else maybe could you throw out there for someone just diving in?
Well, I've long going along the synchronicities.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Before, the Gene Keys kind of found me, and then also I would get like readings here and there from people when I'd have those moments where I felt really lost or really, like, what's next? And I had more recently, I've had two where the same information keeps coming up. So you'll probably find this as you start to dive a little deeper into like this kind of work, and you come across really intuitive people, because I've had friends who I'm just having a conversation with them, and they'll tell me like, I see their other gift is like, reading past lives. And they'll say like, I see you in this temple in Egypt, and you have these codes, and you're encoding people with the codes. And
it gives me chills.
And then like more recently, I've really been stepping into like, okay, what, like really fully owning, like, what is it I'm here to do? What's my soul's purpose? Show me, because when you ask, you're going to get an answer.
Yeah, sometimes you have to be careful when you ask and like what you're asking for, because I've done that too, and it's always a wild ride. And I've also done the release what no longer serves me, and sometimes you're not expecting what's about to be released into the world, and something new is diving its way in because it's something better. And it's just really important to be able to follow that flow. And I love that you talk about synchronicities in the way that once you took action, especially from leaving the toxic relationship, and you decided that you wanted to move forward, synchronicities started leading you down this path. So I think you were going towards maybe another synchronistic resource that led you down a path.
Yeah. So I kept having people tell me that the energies of Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, and Lady Nada, because I guess they all hang out and work together to
indeed
activate more divine feminine energies on the planet. And so I kept having that come up, and I started working, doing more channeling in my work, and Mother Mary kept appearing and coming through. And I was like, all right, so this is something. What is it? And so I asked more questions, like, how do I work with you on a deeper level then? And I came across the Rose Temple. and it's a priestess, a rose priestess initiation in the line of Mary Magdalene. And so that's what I've been focusing on lately is going through the initiations and the Rose Sisterhood, and it's just been really powerful and really surrendering to carrying forth their work. So I'm excited to see what comes out of that.
Beautiful. I think that it's really magical when you find sort of your soul guidance that are like the beings or the goddesses, the queens or the kings even, that really feel like they've connected with you through different entities of your life. I too have a really deep connection to Mary Magdalene. She just keeps coming back and back and back for me. I've went through some really interesting and scary health situations, and Mary Magdalene has always kind of found a way to help guide me through those, as well as Archangel Michael and different entities that just seem to keep reappearing synchronistically in my life as well, and lead me to people like you who are also kind of on that path. So I'm really glad that you had the opportunity to dive into that, the Mary Magdalene and the Mother Mary Rose Temple. And I would suggest that if someone else feels drawn to any of those sort of, for lack of a better term right now, characters or entities, to really kind of check into that archetype and to see what it is that's driving you towards that. So you followed that synchronicity, you got in tune with some of that vibe. What are some other maybe areas of spirituality that you really enjoy? You mentioned earlier art is a big thing for you.
Yeah, so when I was younger, I was really great at art, and had our older artists telling me like, oh, you should go to art school. And I just totally was like, well, that's not how you make money. I need to go to business school. I need to do like businessy things. I totally suppressed my inner artist. And as I'm getting older and really coming into full authenticity, I'm just realizing how much that I need to express that. And also, as I'm looking into it more, like art is a spiritual practice. It's not just like a way to express yourself. It's not just something that, you look at or listen to. It's a spiritual practice. It's a way to connect with the divine. And the artwork that I do, I actually channel. I connect with your higher self, and we set an intention for, if there's a block you want to release, something you want to call into your life to align with, something you want to heal. And instead of, how some people use like mantras or mindset work, this is like a visual painting that you can just look at, and it shifts your energy. And just having it in your space and just looking at it is just so powerful. So
I agree with that. Having visual art to be able to surround yourself with is really key. I lived in a lot of different homes where I wasn't allowed to put things on the walls, and I had very blank, bare walls, and it almost felt draining just to have so much blank, bare energy surrounding me all the time. Finally, I just found ways to surround myself with art, whether I'm like attaching it to like the side of a bookshelf so I'm not affecting my wall or something like that, so that I could have that kind of color and visual experience, because it's very healing. Like music, depending on what vibration you're putting into your frequency, it's really important to really just access that. And it's also a form of expression too. So I love that you find ways to use it in healing.
Yeah, thank you.
What are so you say that you use decoding patterns. Can you tell us a little bit more about what it is you actually do with some of your more spiritual work? Because you've been on this path for a little while now.
Yeah, it's been 3, almost 4 years. I let's see how to describe it. What I do really is help you peel back all the layers of yourself that really aren't you, that aren't in alignment with the truth of your soul, with your real power. And so, anything that anywhere you're letting your fears run your life, or, traumas that need to be healed, things like that. patterns in your life that just keep repeating, both through your actions and in your outer world, there are ways to take a look at what you're doing and how you're doing it, and use the world as a mirror to adjust that so that you get a different result. And it's really powerful work. I was doing just the mindset stuff for a while, and I've more recently gone deeper into somatic body release, combined with the energy healing. And when you put the three together, it's really powerful. So you're not only just like changing the way you think and interact with the world, but you're also releasing from your body and your down to a cellular level what has been holding your energy back. And that could be trauma, that could be, emotions, things like that. And you're also shifting it on an energetic level. So you're getting all of the different aspects of yourself from all the different angles. And it's really powerful.
So is this something that would be along, you might have said this term, is it something that would be considered like the epigenetics, where you're going in and you're energetically changing the different patterns through living beings, so like ourselves, and even maybe being able to meditate it into like our pets and things as well?
I guess it would be considered that. It's sort of my own modality that I've been creating that I haven't quite named yet.
I understand. I call it instead of saying Reiki, I like to say that I do shine energy healing, because I don't use the same necessarily hand motions and the same energetic pattern work as they have historically. It's very much my own experience, and I think it's so important for each healer to find their own experience. I only brought up epigenetics because it's kind of a popular term, and I'm trying to find ways that can help connect those that are outdoing the different research processes to kind of hit those keywords there.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
so it would be similar to epigenetics, because you are going down to the cellular level and you're changing the composition of the cells and the energy that the cells hold. And that will change everything. I've had people actually heal themselves of autoimmune diseases. And I've had people manifest amazing things, and it's just incredible when you can see the power of it.
I agree. So we were talking about the energy that you use or the process that you use to help us basically reprogram our energy. So I'm kind of curious, if you don't mind sharing, what are some of the things that maybe were blockages or programs that you wanted to reprogram or reinstall within yourself to kind of dive deeper into the work that you do?
Well, most recently it's been judgment has been my big thing. It takes up a lot of our energy, and it causes separation within when we judge ourselves and we judge others. And so that's been a really big one that I've been incorporating more into my work lately, because you can get so far with the core. A lot of the core of my work is understanding your shadow and how your shadow speaks to you. So you can determine, like, okay, is this voice that sounds so reasonable and so wise, is that really, coming from fear, or is it coming from love? And you can get pretty far with that. And I got very far with that. And then I got to a point where it was like, okay, I feel stagnant again. Things aren't moving. What's going on? Where's the thing that's blocking the flow? And it was judgment. So really taking an honest look at where you're judging others, because that's really how you're judging yourself. And I've heard so many people say that before, and I never quite got it until I really sat with it and looked at it and asked myself, like, how do I feel about this judgment? And the thing about judgment is there's always a fear at the root of it.
Mm. I
So
love
if you
that.
can,
I love that you said that it didn't click until you sat with it. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to say that that was very similar for me too. It didn't click for me until I meditated with the thought of unconditional love and what that really meant for us to have unconditional love for each other. Because when I started to kind of look at people that frustrated me and ask myself what it meant to unconditionally love them, I realized that the thing that frustrated me about them was something that I probably often do to other people.
yes, exactly. And I think our tendency as human beings is to, and this comes from a place of feeling like you're not good enough,
Mm.
um, is to look at everyone around us and and point the finger, because it makes us feel like, oh, I'm better than you. And it helps to fill that void of feeling like I'm not good enough.
Mm. And I think that when people start their awakening journey, it's often because they feel either a excitement to reclaim their life, or it's a need or a want to be able to heal themselves because they feel as if they're broken. And a lot of that brokenness comes from fear of judgment of others, or trying to meet other people's standards. I know for me, for a long time, it was trying to meet different family members' standards. In being somebody who was adopted, I felt like they had standards of me that they didn't, or expectations of me that didn't make sense, because I didn't come from the same gene pool as them. I didn't come from the same background. Like, I had multiple different lifestyles, and people all seem to have this expectation or character of you in their heads. And when it comes down to it, the reprogramming process seems to be really about what kind of character you want to show up as.
Yes. And that's another major component of what I do, is looking at like what do you really value in your life, and are you living by it?
Mm,
And what places in your life are you having trouble expressing that, and how can you express it?
mm,
And so, yeah, there's a lot of fear for a lot of people on this journey of like, well, I can't speak my truth because I'll be judged, and what will people think? And I'll, become an outcast from my family and
mm.
my friends. And
It's kind of like coming out of the spiritual closet when you start to tell people like, oh, I talk to angels, and oh, I believe that spirits are totally still connected with us, and oh, I really love crystals, and I believe that they've helped me a lot more than some of my other medical experiences and connections have. So you get a lot of eye looks and glares, but honestly, it's, for me, it's been such a beautiful journey, because I had tried so many other options, or therapies and medications, and nothing was working. And in fact, it just felt like everything was getting worse and my world was just breaking. So even it seems like we have a lot in common, because even when we started and you were talking about kind of having to come off of different medications and prescriptions, it is draining, because even things that you don't expect to have sort of a reaction or an addiction to, things that aren't necessarily thrown into the addiction category, you still become very dependent on them. And they control your moods, and there's always more side effects than it seems like benefits when I look at things in retrospect. So being able to kind of go through these different processes and reprogram yourself energetically, if possible, seems like a great option. Not saying to not check into medical options, but if you're looking for something else and nothing else is working, it definitely seems like a good place to dive in.
yes, and always trust the little nudges that you get, and the synchronicities. Pay attention to what keeps showing up. Like if you're at that point, even if you're not, but if you're at that point where you're like, okay, I really want to heal from this, I really want to move forward, um, I don't know how, then just pay attention to what comes your way, because your intuition is going to lead you to that. And it's probably not going to look like what you think it's going to look like. It might be something that might seem a little out there, a little weird, or it might be something that you're like, wow, normally I wouldn't try that. But when you say yes and you just do it anyway and you give it a try and you go like full-heartedly into your healing, then amazing things can happen, because you really can heal from anything.
It's so true. And I think that being able to use like meditation and stuff is really helpful. They say that you can heal yourself. And that's what many of the spiritual gurus and even like Jesus and things, that's what he was doing, was he was teaching people that they could heal themselves, and using the laying of hands and the energy exchange and the belief of love. And like you said earlier too, like without, no matter how many things you do, without love, none of it's going to matter. None of it's going to matter. Speaking of love, you also are a mother. So how does spirituality affect your experience as a mother?
Well, um, that brings the whole conscious parenting aspect to it. Just being very aware of, it helps to highlight the patterns, the family patterns, generational patterns of things that aren't really so healthy, whether or not I want to carry that forward, and how I can see, it helps me to see how that affected me growing up. And it also helps me to release it, because each time I choose not to, carry that forward, then I'm helping to heal it for my whole family line.
That's really powerful. And I can definitely see that. I'm not yet a mother, but I deal with a lot of children. And I've definitely noticed that before, kind of going back before I had the moment where I sat with unconditional love and what that meant to unconditionally love basically everyone. I had a lot of angst. I would get frustrated easily with toddlers and all their questions and all their energy and just all of the things. And it really changed it and gave their energy a much more beautiful construct, and how curious they are. And it also goes along with like the healing of the inner child. And I had a lot of that work to do too, because I didn't get to be a child. But I'm just always amazed by how many spiritual mothers there are out there that are just healing that and giving their children that magical experience. So I wanted to just touch on that a moment, and any advice you had for maybe somebody who is just on their spiritual journey and also just a new mother. What is maybe something that they could do to continue kind of getting grounded and find the routines? Because I'm sure that gets shaken up pretty quickly when there's a new life being in the mix.
Oh yeah. Well, first thing I would say is, you're still human, so give yourself a break. Being a mom is hard. Being on this path, I tend to hold myself to really high standards. Like I'm so conscious and I'm so spiritual and I should just be perfect. And I'm also human, and I have my times when I'm just, overwhelmed or not having a great day. And so it's normal. It's like normal mom stuff is still going to be part of your life. So be okay with that, and don't be so hard on yourself for being human. It's the first thing I want to say. And as far as like schedules and things like that go, I'm kind of, flowing right now with the good one where he naps like a couple hours in the afternoon. So I can get some, a little bit of work done. And I'm a single mom, so I don't really have a lot of help. And then, nighttime, it's like, okay, do I want to get sleep or do I want to do work?
Right. You got to kind of pick your battles there.
Yeah. And so it can be hard when you get to that, when you're in that place of like, which thing that I definitely need am I going to pick right now?
Well, okay, let's dive into a different discussion real quick. So being a new mom's hard and trying to balance all of that energy, but how about if you were going to give advice to your younger self? What would you tell your younger self going through kind of the experience that is life?
I would tell her to listen to herself more and less to other people. And geez, I don't think she would have listened to me.
That's okay. It's hard to listen to our younger selves sometimes, but I'm hoping that whoever's listening to this podcast will kind of just feel into it and take what works for them. And I always wish I would have had some wise women that had been, 10 years into the experience I was trying to dive into, and I just always wonder what they would tell me. So
I mean,
listen to yourself.
If there's one thing to really take away, it's that those things that you're drawn to, the ways you want to express yourself, the things you want to do them anyway. Like, what other people think, you're not living your life for them. You're living your life for you. And the more you follow and listen to that inner voice, the stronger it's going to get, and the easier it's going to be to follow. And it's not going to lead you wrong. It's going to lead you to your happiness. So
I love that. I love that. Well, is there anything else at all that you feel guided by yourself or spirit or even angels to kind of to share today? Anything else that would make this home run for you? You've shared so much beautiful inspirational content already, so I'm really grateful to have you.
Oh, thank you so much. I would just say that, if there is something that you're being drawn towards, just go for it. And if you feel like you're in your head and you have a million excuses why you can't, all of that stuff is bullshit.
I love it.
But that's one thing I've really realized in this work that I've done, because people come to me with all of their fears and I help them see that it's an illusion. And then the opposite thing usually happens, but not one single time has the thing that they're afraid of actually happened.
Kind of like earlier when I said coming out of the spiritual closet, there's a couple of musicians I follow, and one of them, he was saying about how he was so afraid that if he came out to his audience that he was bisexual, that he would lose his whole audience. But instead he did it, and he gained, he almost doubled his following. He might have lost a few people, but those weren't really his people. But by coming out and being able to be himself, he said that it made him feel freer. It made him feel less fake in the world, and he was able to show up in a way that completely changed his experience. So when people are afraid to come out of the spiritual closet, I try to remind them that it's not as scary as they think. Yeah, they might be shunned by certain people that they thought would love them, but those weren't really their people in the long run, and their tribe will always find them.
Yeah, and when the people fall away who don't quite get it, it just makes room for the right people to come in.
So true. It's all about that synchronicity and following the path. So again, I think you've shared a lot of beautiful things, and I would really love to get you on another upcoming podcast. So feel free to hit me up anytime you feel like you have a message to share. And if you're feeling good about today, I'd love for you to give a shout out to where people can find you online.
Yeah, you can find me on my Facebook profile, Pamela Schneider. I don't have a website up right now, but my Facebook profile is the best place to find me. I have activated art that you can check out. I have energy shares, and I'm always sharing things that will just shift your whole paradigm and mindset and the way you look at the world. And that'll help expand your growth.
Beautiful. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here with me. I hope anyone listening will take some time and check you out. If you guys need more inspirational content, you can check out more at bringmetolife.com with the number 2. And I hope you have a great day, Pam.
You too.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Thanks for shining on with us.